Statesville.
Voted the #1 furniture store in Statesville year after year, White Sales prides itself on amazing customer service. A huge
Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm.
If you don't know our host, David Hamm, he's a 25-year NASCAR veteran, engine builder, and jackman.
Live every Monday evening, we have a new guest
From the racing world with their stories, their paths,
their racing roots.
Sponsored by Swimming Pool and Spa.
Now here's our host, David Hamm.
And good evening. Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm, right here on 550 AM, 92.9 FM, live from the Randy Marion studio. You can also join us on DHammiam on YouTube, and I believe we're streaming live onto, what are we on, Facebook?
Yes.
Several Facebook pages, and no Twitch, which is fine.
Yes, no Twitch. We're on Twitter and a couple of different Facebook pages. So
all right.
several different places to find us.
Yeah, so tell your friends about us if y'all enjoy this content and like to tune in every week and hit that thumbs up. We also got Tracy in with me. Hello, Tracy.
Hey, how are y'all?
I didn't forget about you this week. I never forget about her, really. But, you know, I just take for granted that she's here. But
wise man.
That's
wise
right.
Man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. But most importantly, we got Travis Hanson. And I must add, he is a 22-year Marine veteran. Are you consider yourself a veteran? Is that what it is? Or are you still in kind of?
I'm retired.
Retired, okay.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a young man's game, and I'm an old man now.
Well,
so,
I understand.
You know.
Yeah, that's why I got out of NASCAR.
Exactly.
It's a young man's. And you're also with the Iredell Sheriff's Office.
I am. So I retired from the Marine Corps. My last day in uniform was in 2009 timeframe. 2010, I transferred to the retired list. I started contracting, defense contracting, after I retired. I was a counter ID instructor, so teaching people how not to get blown up by IDs because they hurt.
Yes,
it's pretty loud. So I did that for kind of a while, and I ended up running into a gentleman that I worked with when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And he and I had some conversations one day in passing. We hadn't seen each other since the 90s. And about a week or so after I ran into him, he called me, and ironically, our offices were in the buildings next door to each other, so literally across the street. And he said, hey, I need you to come on over here. And I said, okay. So I walked in, and he goes, you're going to be working here. You're going to start in a couple weeks. And I said, well, I got to be honest with you, Tom, I don't even know what you do here. And at the time, it was the Marine Special Operations Schoolhouse. It is now referred to as the Marine Raider Training Center. And it was a brand new portion of the Marine Corps. And it's, in layman's terms, it's 99% of the civilian population knows what a Navy SEAL is and has heard about Navy SEAL training. For the Marine Corps, it's called MARSOC, and that's what type of training they had to go through. And Tom was the director of it, and he needed an assistant, a deputy. And that's what I ended up doing for the next 8-9 years, working there. That position, like all contracts, just like car payments, there's a first day and a last day, you know.
Yeah.
So that contract eventually transitioned into a civil service position. And this is in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, here on the coast. And I didn't really have any desire to transition to civil service. It would have really kind of constricted me to a brick and mortar type office, where I was very, very fortunate the last 3 or 4 years that I was contracting. I could do the preponderance of it remotely. So that gave me a lot of opportunity to do some other things as well while working concurrently doing that. When that position transitioned to civil service, I kind of retired. I moved out this way. I'd already kind of been living out here for a little bit. My wife and I were dating. We were living together at the time. And I'll be very, very candid. I'm pretty good at drinking beer. And when I had nothing to do, I had a lot of time to do that. Yeah. And she said, well, we should probably look into getting work. And all kidding aside, Darren Campbell, the sheriff here, we had met through, ironically, through Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman and I were actually pretty good friends. Darren and Ryan are pretty good friends. Ryan had made an introduction to me. And a couple years before I stopped contracting, Darren and I and Steve Ellis actually went to lunch and kind of talked about coming to work here. And some things just never materialized. And so then when I stopped contracting full time, I guess it was probably a year and a half after that I went through BLET right here at Mitchell, and was the old man of the class, and went on with things, and now I'm working at the sheriff's office.
Yeah, very good. Sheriff Campbell texted me earlier and said something about you need to get to work. So well, coming from the guy who just got back from the beach for a week, I'll just leave it at that. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I know. I was talking to him about a week ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go down to the beach." And I said, "You're gonna spend money on that gas to get down there."
Exactly.
But he said, "At least you drive a Chevrolet truck." So.
True story.
Yeah, because he's a Chevy man for sure. So. All right. So that pretty much, gosh, we could have a whole show about your military, but you got so many other things too that you have going on.
So one of the things, if I fast forward to about 3/4 through my military career, now we're getting into the height of the Iraq-Afghanistan war and all the deployments that went on with that. And the one thing that I will say, and I have said since 2003, 2004, as a military fighting force, we were incredibly prepared to deploy and go to combat. We were horrifically prepared to return. And by that, what I mean by that is, as a nation, you and I are similar in age. I'm sure I'm 51. I'll be 52 pretty soon.
Same here.
Right? So, when we were growing up.
When's your birthday?
September 14th.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to add that the sheriff and I are 1 day apart. Okay. He is 1 day older than me, but that's in January.
All right.
So, all right.
So you and I growing up, we have family members that were in Vietnam. We have, grandparents that were World War II, Korea, et cetera, and all that. So you hear these things when you're growing up. Well, we had a peacetime military for a long, long time. So the preponderance of society was ignorant to what happens in war. The other things that have transpired since the 60s and 70s are the advances in medicine, right? So the majority of the injuries that service members sustained while they were deployed, if this was still Vietnam timeframe, it would have killed them. But advances in medicine, fortunately, have saved them. They're still living. But they're living with some pretty horrific type injuries, and injuries that people really can't fathom, right? And they're happening to children, right? I mean, to kids, 18, 22, these are young men and women. So when they're coming home now, the next question is, okay, now what? So what do we do with them? How does this 19-year-old that doesn't know how to balance a checkbook? Let's be honest. I have 4 children. My youngest is 23. None of them know how to balance a checkbook at that age, right?
Yes.
And I'm not slandering anybody. I'm just being honest. Doesn't know how to balance a checkbook. Now he's a double amputee. Go live your life the rest of your life. What do we do? Right. Who's going to help them? Where to help them? So there was an organization that was started at Camp Lejeune, and I'm just going to say ahead of time, I wish the people that are receiving services from this organization nothing but success and nothing but peace. But I'm not going to promote that organization. So that organization started, and ironically how it started is a Marine officer was injured. Well, I knew that gentleman for 10, 15 years leading up to it. And I had just gotten home from a deployment, and I'm watching the news, and he was actually on the news. He and his wife were on the news, and he was learning how to walk again. And it floored me because this guy was a triathlete. I trained him in the pool. I taught him how to swim competitive distances. He was could just run from here to California and not breathe heavy or sweat. He was one of those guys, like just disgusting physical fitness level, right? Right. And he's legitimately learning how to walk again. And he's wearing a helmet because half of his cranium had been removed to alleviate. So these injuries that most people are ignorant to and should be ignorant to, right? So his wife and her girlfriend started this organization for all of the right reasons, not for pomp and circumstance, not to make money, not to do anything other than help these guys out. So I contacted him. I said, hey, whatever help you need, I'm more than happy to come help. Like I said, I knew the gentleman and knew a lot of the players involved. So we fast forward about 6 months. and I'm not being disrespectful to the military, but this is how the military mindset was at that time. That couple, those two ladies, had contacted me and said, hey, we really need a motorized wheelchair because we have a double amputee who's coming to the Wounded Warrior Barracks. The Wounded Warrior Barracks is brand new, right? It's a brand new thing. And the gentleman who was injured is the reason that there's a barracks to house injured service members so that people can keep accountability of them, people can ensure that their medications are being done, ensure they're going to their therapies, all of the things that we take for granted now.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So I show up over there. Myself and some friends of mine, we put on a poker run for motorcycles. We raised money. We bought this electric wheelchair, and we're going to go over here to the Wounded Warrior Barracks and deliver it. Now, I'm still on active duty, okay? And the Wounded Warrior Barracks is directly in front of the commanding general of Camp Lejeune's office. So now I'm in civilian attire showing up, but everybody there, like, they know me, and I know all these folks. So we get to the barracks, and I'm expecting, okay, hey, where's this barracks, where we're going to get into? It wasn't handicap accessible.
Yeah.
You want me to give you a motorized wheelchair, but there's 12 steps for this kid to get into the barracks. The chair doesn't fit because, like, never in our careers had we had to think of something like that, right?
Right.
So that right then and there, the 12 of us that went to deliver this thing, we went to Lowe's, bought a bunch of wood, built a ramp. Here you go. Now you're inside there, right?
Yeah.
Do what you have to do. But it really resonated with me of, man, there's a lot of stuff that I'm ignorant to. And I was in a command position. I had 1,000 guys reporting to me. I deployed with those people, and so it kind of got me thinking of, okay, what do we do when we get back? So it started volunteering more and more and actually trying to be an active duty advocate for this organization. So now we'll fast forward to when I retire. I had some surgeries the year before I retired, had some things done, and kind of got an idea of the assembly line that was military medicine at the time, right? But my whole adult life, that's all I'd ever known was.
Would it be like the VA hospital?
No, so I was having, and I will say this up front, I have never had a negative experience with the VA.
Okay.
Do I know people that have litanies of them? Yes. Me personally, I've never had a negative experience with them. But I'm also fortunate. I have a lot of friends who now work at the VA, so I have a little bit clearer way of navigating it.
Right.
So I have to say that up front, right?
Yeah.
So I was still on base. So it was a military hospital, and had some things done, and there were some things that were less than pleasurable and all that stuff. So I kind of got an idea of what that assembly line type thing was. Now at the time, I'm 38, 39 at the time. I'm thinking that I'm, the oldest man in the world, and going, what's that 20-year-old doing? What is the 20-year-old dependent wife who has 2 children, 3 children, and their husband's going through this? Because again, cognitively, intellectually, she doesn't know how to navigate it, but she's got 3 youngins and a broke husband.
Yeah.
How do we keep them as a family unit together, right? So I start working more and more with them, and trying to, again, advocate from firsthand experience, and also being in a position to where now I'm retired, I can tell people exactly what I think of them and exactly what I think, and not have to worry about the repercussions of being an enlisted guy looking at a general and telling him exactly what I think. Generals never like to be told they're wrong.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I enjoy with great pleasure telling generals they're wrong, right? Like, I will go out of my way to tell you, you should have tied your shoes differently, sir. Have a great day. Yeah. But anyway,
and you're kind of a big guy, so
No, but so we go through all that and we start establishing those type of things.
Sure.
So now I had started contracting, and when I was doing my counter ID stuff, I was on a mobile training team. So I would go literally all over the country. We'd go to the Republic of Georgia. We'd go all over and teach these techniques of how not to get blown up by IEDs. So I have an opportunity to network at a different scale now with every branch of service to to be a voice for this organization of, hey, if you need some help, call this number. These people will be able to take care of you. So I did that for a while. And then the CEO of that organization one day sat me down and said, you know what, I'm really tired of you spending your money doing all this. I'm going to hire you as a contractor. So you give me an invoice. So the show's called Racing Roots. Now I'm going to get to how we're talking about racing, right?
Yeah.
So at the time, I was also racing. Racing short tracks, going all over and all that stuff. And one of the things that I would do is I would bring families from the Wounded Warrior barracks to the racetrack. And it wasn't so that, hey, you can cheer me on, this, that, or the other. I actually saw the connection between, it was a gentleman that I know who was an explosive ordnance disposal technician. And he was injured, and he was injured pretty severely. He's in a chair now, and he's an amputee, a double amputee. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit. His son graduated from Nascar Tech, I don't know, probably 4 years ago now. But his kids were itty bitties when he was injured, right? So now, when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, and you picture your dad, you picture your mom, they're rock stars, they're heroes, right?
Yeah.
Well, this 6, 7, 8-year-old is looking at his dad, and he's in a chair, and he doesn't know all of the things that dad did before he got in that chair. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So we show up at the track, and this guy is a mechanical genius. And he comes rolling over to me, and he's like, hey, man, you need to change this, you need to change this, you need to change that. I'm 4/10 faster.
All right.
And I was like, well, look at this. And I'm looking at the kid, realizing for the first time that his dad isn't just a guy in this chair, right? So I'm watching this young man like, wow.
Discover his dad.
Exactly. And he's starting this different dialogue as a young adolescent moving up. I said, well, maybe there's something to this. So I would start bringing families to tracks specifically for that, for like a family reintegration type thing, right? And one of the things that's also really, really hard for these guys is when they are injured or what have you, they don't know, like all they knew is their past, and like they can't hang on to that anymore, and that's gone. But that can't be further from the truth. They can still do it. It's just going to be done a little different, right?
Right.
So like now I'm old. I can still run, just not as far, right?
Yeah, right.
Those type things, right? Mm-hmm. So just trying to figure out a way for them to reintegrate and reconnect as a family. So back to this organization. So they're, hey, we're going to start contracting you. So we're going to pay for the families when they show up. So at the end of the month, they say, hey, send me a bill. So I'd send them a bill for like $10. Next month, like $10, And they're getting madder, like, hey, you need to be compensated for this. We want to make a program out of it. So we got together and we actually formulated and wrote a program. And the program was called Drive for Hope. So what it was you're taking people and you're teaching them, retooling them of how to reintegrate back into civilian society. Yes, is there a sporting event involved? There certainly is. But you could use anything to do it. It could be a badminton competition. I don't care. But if it gets you there and it creates a dialogue, then we're going to move forward with that.
What did you say it was called again?
It was called the Drive for Hope.
Drive for Hope. Okay,
Yeah.
Got you.
So, and that also coincides with the organization that it was. And again, I wish nothing but success for any person that is receiving any type of treatment from that organization. But things started picking up. Things started going pretty well. So traveling around, going to different places, I ended up in Newton, Iowa at one of the Xfinity races that are out there. So I meet some folks out there and develop this relationship, a corporate relationship with Casey's General Store and this organization. And the CEO at the time of Casey's, a gentleman named Bob Myers, one of the greatest gentlemen walking the face of earth, just a great gentleman, great man. He and I kind of befriended one another, and I would go out to Iowa on more frequent occasions. So if you know anything about Iowa, you know anything about Newton, it's down the street from Knoxville. If you know anything about Casey's General Store, they're completely into sprint car racing. So all Bob would keep saying is, you asphalt guys, you don't know anything about dirt racing. You're going to come with us. Well, I started racing in dirt. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of do. Yeah. So we show up out there and we're having these conversations and things are rock and rolling. Well, I go to Newton, Iowa one day and we're walking in and this guy is on the other side of the fence and he's hollering my name. I have no idea who he is. I'm like, what is going on? Well, he is the promoter for the IMCA. And the IMCA is short track racing of the dirt world, which just like Hickory, right? You know, but they have this ginormous umbrella, and it's a family-run business. It's run by a mother and her son, the Root family. They're phenomenal people. And Kevin Yoder is the guy, and he starts telling me this story. Well, the irony of all of this, and you never know how small the world is until you learn how small the world is. So here we go. Kevin's wife was a school teacher. Kevin's wife taught this young man. He goes on, joins the Army, gets deployed, and comes home as a quadruple amputee. The organization that I'm working with is working with this young man and his fiance to ensure that he's going to be good. The young man wakes up from a coma, and the first thing he says is, I want Casey's Pizza. Now, to clarify, Casey's Pizza is phenomenal. Casey's is a gas station, right? It's the 4th largest pizza distributor in the United States, but it's a gas station. So this organization calls me and says, hey, we're going to call him and have some pizza sent. I said, the kid lost all of his limbs, and we're giving him gas station food. Maybe we should rethink this, right? Like, guys, let's think about it, because I'm ignorant to all these things. So Bob Myers, CEO, gets the order of what he wants, has them all prepared, gets in the corporate jet, flies from Iowa to Bethesda, goes into the kitchen at the Army Medical Center, cooks them all, and the guy has a pizza party for everybody on the amputee ward. Now, fast forward back to Newton. Kevin Yoder's wife is this kid's teacher growing up. They're intimately involved with the family. All he wanted to do was say thanks. Has no idea that I'm there because for racing and all these things. Invites me to this thing called the IMCA Super Nationals, which is, if you've never been to or never heard of and you're a racer, if you don't go to the Super Nationals once, you're missing out. It's 6 days of all the racing you would ever want in your entire life.
All right. Racing Roots field trip.
There you go. Yeah. Every September, I'll drive.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Sounds good.
I'm sure Bryson would be out for that. Yeah.
So
Sign me up.
I go out there, and this guy's telling me, he's like, yeah, we have 60,000 people out there. I'm like, at a 3/8 mile dirt track, stop talking. I show up, there's 60,000 plus people crammed it, and it's phenomenal. I says, okay, no problem. So I go out there for a few years in a row. Anyway, come back from trying to get back into how all this ties into why I'm on this show. So all of this is centric to my passion. Like, I'm not a stick and ball fan. Like, I'll watch a baseball game if it's the last series of the World Series.
Right, that's kind of me too.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll watch a hockey game because hockey's
You like seeing the fights.
exactly every now and then. A hockey game will break out, but there's a fight, right?
Yeah.
And my wife's Canadian, so you have to like
There
hockey,
you go.
right? But I'm a racing fan, right? So like a racing fan, and I'd like to say I'm a student of the history of it, right? So I enjoy where it came from, and I also enjoy where it is now. In any form of racing. I've raced mini stock cars on dirt. I've taken that dirt mini stock car and raced on asphalt, and taken my asphalt cars and switched them over to run on dirt. The most fun I've ever had at a race was racing a lawnmower. And if you've never raced a lawnmower and you've never done 80 miles an hour on a lawnmower, it will change your perspective of the day.
I wanted to build them before. Thought I'd try that.
The International Mower of Weeds, it's a real thing, and I'm telling you, it was a blast, absolute blast.
Yeah.
But so trying to intrinsically link two passions. Yeah. One passion for helping kids that I deployed with. The other passion of a sport that has given me a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how this whole thing comes about, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm still working with this organization, and we meet a gentleman. And are you familiar with the Goodwood Festival of Speed?
No, I'm not. Okay,
so it's in England. Every genre of racing vehicle, from the combustion engine till present. And it generally happens the weekend after the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The winning car of Le Mans is there racing.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it's up this dude's driveway.
Wow.
Like legitimately up this guy's driveway. Okay, it's 1.1 miles. Let it eat and we'll go. Yeah. Right. So went over there one year, kind of watching and seeing how things go. And it is a display of mechanical art, right? I know I'm jumping all over the place, and I don't mean to.
Craftsmanship and all.
So I'm sitting there watching these cars go up there, and it's a steam-powered two-person car where you got one guy hanging out oiling things.
Yeah.
And this guy is a full send, right? And some of the folks that I'm with are like, oh my God, look how loose that car is. And it's a road course, right? And he's left and right turns, and he's hanging it out there, and he's like, I can't believe how loose it is. I said, hey, have you looked at the wheels? And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, buddy, it's a wooden wheel. Yeah. There's no rubber. He's going to slide a little. It's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
But it's everything from that to present day F1, right? And NASCAR has an involvement there as well. So went over with the guy who brought some NASCAR vehicles over. The following year, he says, hey, I'm bringing more over, and I want you to drive one of them up the hill. Sign me up. I am your guy, right? Yes. So all I have to do is fly to England, and this will absolutely.
All right.
So while I'm in England, Kevin Yoder from the IMCA calls me. Hey, are you coming back? Yeah, sure am. You know, and of course we're ribbing each other on. Well, you driving, you know, on your asphalt stuff, blah blah blah. So I jokingly I said, you send me 5 legal IMCA late models. You send me what they are, I'll buy one sight unseen, and I'll enter it in this year's stuff. He said, no, you won't. I said, send them to me. So he emails me 5 cars that are for sale. I bought one, drove to Iowa, picked it up, bought the car and the trailer, drove to Iowa, picked it up, drove it to Boone. Now, I did have some connections as far as some shock guys and all that stuff there.
Yeah.
And they helped me out with all that. Entered it and raced it, helped Kevin pick his jaw up off the ground, put it back in the hauler, and drove it home. So all because of how much they were supporting this organization, and they were steadfast in their commitment to service members, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all of that kind of leads up to how am I here now? There was a collaboration that went on, and Ryan Newman was actually the spokesperson of it. So the CEO of this organization, again, I'm living at the beach on the coast here. The CEO calls me up one day and says, hey, they're filming a commercial at Ryan Newman's house tomorrow, and he's got to talk about our organization. You think you can go there and like tell him about us? And I said, sure, because I have his number and I know where he lives. But it's like, stop talking. Are you what? You know, like, you want me to get there? Like, I have no idea who this guy is. So at the end of it, one of the things that was supposed to happen was there was going to be a race that went on, and Ryan was going to be the grand marshal of it, right? And there were some other cats that were in it, some other lower tier cup drivers that were going to come out there as well, right? So all of these things happen. We're getting all this stuff rocking and rolling, and this torrential downpour comes in the night before the race.
Yeah.
And so I think we had like 45, 50 cars pre-registered. We had like 20 haulers that were parking at the track the night before, and Noah's Ark is coming through 3 and 4. I mean, it's just torrential downpour. And the owner of the racetrack came to me and said, there's no way we're going to be able to have everything ready tomorrow. Everybody's going to, so we had to like switch right then and there. Okay, what are we going to do?
Wait a minute. Here's a problem. Somebody told you there's no way we're going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
So you kick into action.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that coming.
So right then and there, I called a friend of mine, got a hog, called another friend of mine, got a smoker, went to the now Wounded Warrior regiment, and it's now a full-on medical center and all this stuff. And I said, hey, all of you that are here are now going to be great. You know, we're going to have a barbecue. Ryan Newman's going to come here. And I did like a 35, 40-minute question and answer with Newman with all these families out there. Brought a couple of the cars that we were going to have so kids can crawl in them, do things, start them up, make loud noises, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, what Ryan was really steadfast about is he didn't care about any of the racing stuff. He wanted to be able to connect with those service members. So the day started, well, my interaction with them started picking them up at the airport, and you've been involved in NASCAR. You've seen this, and I'm not slamming Ryan at all. I think he's a great guy. He's a good friend. Like, we pick him up, he and his manager are there. He's like, hey, how you doing? Get in the back of the car, not a lot of conversation. We're driving there. On the way home, he says, hey, man, stop. And we talk for 30 minutes about everything that's going on. He says, however I can help you, you let me know. I says, okay. Again, I don't know him from Adam. I'm like, okay, well, however I can help you, but I don't have his phone number. So it might be a problem, right? Mm-hmm. A month later, we go to another event. He's there. He walks up to me. Hey, man, I haven't heard from you. I said, well, I don't have your number. He goes, well, you should have asked. I was like, well, give me your number. So now we start texting back and forth. And I told him what I had been doing at the local level of bringing family members and all that stuff. And he goes, well, you should bring them to all the cup races. I said, well, how am I going to do that? He goes, well, just get a hard card. Again, how naive I was like, what's this hard card thing all about? Yeah. He says, give me your driver's license. So he writes down my driver's license number. A couple of days later, somebody from Newman Motorsports says, hey, we just added you to our team roster. I was like, okay. And then Ryan texts me, he says, I'm not paying for your hard card, but
yeah, it's like a couple $1,000.
Exactly. I think at the time it was $3,200.
Oh, it's going up.
Yeah. So I sent everything off and boom, have this hard card. So for the rest of that year, all I did was, now mind you, I'm in essence working 2 full-time jobs. I have 4 kids. The 3 girls are in high school. My son's still trying to master how to use the restroom. And again, he's 23 now, so he was like 12 at the time, right? He's pretty. That's all I'll say. He's pretty. But
he's a Marine too, right?
Yeah, he just got out of the Marine Corps. He's in the Coast Guard now. My oldest girl and my youngest child, my oldest child is, I have 3 girls that are all older than my son. So my oldest and my boy are both in the Coast Guard now. My middle daughter is married to a staff sergeant in the Army. They're in Fort Lewis, Washington. And my youngest daughter is a civil engineer, and she's in El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
So anyway, so I spent the next year going to every racetrack that I could drive to on a Friday and drive home from on a Sunday. And all I did was, hey, how you doing? And I'd go meet people. And everybody thought, hey, well, you got to get Jimmy Johnson. You have to get Dale Jr. You have to get all that. Well, that sounds great in theory, but you're not just going to walk up to them. But if you get to know and you establish a relationship with the people that put the water in Jimmy Johnson's trailer or the guy that sets the interior in Junior's car, if they vouch for you, a lot of things happen. And the other thing that I never did is I never went to anyone and put my hand out and asked them for anything. The only thing I ever did was say, hey, I'm going to have this many people here, and there are this many service members that just did this deployment and have this. If you'd like to meet them, they're going to be over here. And never asked them to be on a, and everybody just kind of kept looking at me like, what are you doing? But I never wanted to be the guy that had my hand out, right? Yeah. So I wasn't. And it got to the point where a fairly prominent team owner, this guy used to live in Kannapolis, drove a black car, his boss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Came up to me one day and he said, hey, when are you going to ask me for something? Because at the time, Ryan was driving for him. So we'd been introduced. And he says, when are you going to ask me for something? I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to ask you for anything today, but when I do, it might hurt just a little bit. And he said, okay, not a problem. And that was it. And that was the only conversation we ever had. But from that day until this day, if I showed up at the racetrack and I had he would, I don't care what he was doing. I watched him walk away from TV cameras, come over, introduce himself to every one of the service members. Hey, how are you? You come with me, I'll take you here. Completely ingratiating, right? So that's what I did for that year. And the next year, I had met with Jordan Gelati, who works at NASCAR. And I told him what all that I wanted to do. And he says, well, he was waiting for me to ask them, hey, can you fund this program? Can you do this? Can you do that? I said, Jordan, I don't want any money from you. The only thing I want is the ability to get 15 hot passes. That's it. It's not going to cost you anything. As a matter of fact, it's a tax write-off for the organization.
Right.
Voila, 15 hot passes showed up. So I'd gotten to the point where I now needed a kind of support system. So I went and bought a motorhome. Was very fortunate that a lot of the teams that I worked with would give me one of their RV lot passes. So I'd park at Daytona, I'd be in the overflow lot or wherever, but now I have a place to centralize. I have a place to bring service members and a lot of them have injuries that they can't be in the elements for extended periods of time. Hence the whole reason I bought the motorhome. And I didn't buy a Prevost or a Newell. No, right? No, we did not. I looked like the Clampetts rolling in, but I wasn't there to make a fashion statement,
right.
So we go in and set all this stuff up. and have these guys in and out. So 7 years ago, I left the organization that I was working with, and I started a nonprofit, a 501c3, called Veterans Education and Transition Service, VETS for short. Kind of catchy.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and the whole purpose of it is reintegration, okay, and transition service. And people wrongly tie transition from active duty to civilian employment. I have to tell you, it is a huge transition for a 19 to 23-year-old when I am encouraging them to engage in combative exercises, to engage in combat, to transition to come back to socially acceptable civilian life, right? So like to go across the street and get a burger after on Tuesday of last week, I'm rewarding you for taking human life. So one of the things that I just say up front, there are a lot of people who have been to combat environments. There is a big difference between combat environments and combat. Combat is a vile, vile thing. It's a dark, dark place.
Sure.
What I learned from all of that is the more I was helping them and the more I could identify, what I thought those kids had going on with them, the more I realized how dark of a place I was actually in and how much I was kind of sheltering it by immersing myself in with all these other people, because now I'm assimilating with them and I'm kind of the same way, right? So the adage of you'll never be able to help somebody clean their backyard until your backyard's taken care of. So I kind of had to like stop and really kind of figure out where I was. And my wife, thinks I say this to be cliche-ish. And if you ever see, I think I have like 10 posts on Instagram, like I told you before, so I don't snap book or talk face or any of that stuff. But finding peace is the greatest gift you can have in life, right? Without question. Finding peace is the greatest gift you can have in life. Having then found that, and now kind of re-immersing myself in with these service members, I think I was able to actually have an impact on them. And to this day, there's a lot that we still stay in touch with and still communicate with and all those things. But what we found is we don't have to harbor on all the dark stuff, right? So again, why I'm on Racing Roots.
No, you're fine, and I'm enjoying these stories because you've done so much, and you're fortunate that you actually have found, I guess you could say, your why, and the things that you
calling.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
I think I have two passions, right? The biggest passion that I cling to these days is peace. Like whatever it is that's going to, and I don't mean like, peace, love, harmony, and I'm going to wear a white sheet and sing Kumbaya and all that kind of good stuff, right? But things don't excite me, right? They don't.
Yeah, it's like you don't get upset because it's like you've already seen so much.
I think kind of an acceptance. Like I didn't realize how ignorant I was until I learned how ignorant I was, and that's when you just call your mom or your dad and you're like, hey man, I'm sorry. Like I was really stupid and all your gray hair, my bad. Right.
Yeah.
But so that and the connection that I have with some folks are things that I hold very, very dear to me. Right. The thing that brings me the most joy is anything automotive related. Like again, the most fun I've ever had racing was a lawnmower. Like,
I can imagine that would be fun.
Well, how it all started, we had gone, so Rolling Thunder in Washington, D.C. was a big thing for motorcycles. I ride a lot of motorcycles, and a bunch of us went up there. And we were staying at a family friend's house, actually in the town where I grew up in Maryland. And the fair was going on, and my buddy owns this mower repair shop, and he had hot rodded this, pardon me, this mower up, and he says, oh yeah, we're going to go race it. Travis, you race cars, you race it tomorrow. As hungover as I have ever been in my life, when it's a bazillion degrees outside, they're like, you need to have a leather jacket on. I'm like, it's 9 million degrees. Oh, sure. And put a helmet on, and then just went ripping around. And it's 80 miles an hour on a lawnmower. Hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. Great time. But the lawnmower didn't end well. We brought that lawnmower back in two pieces, but it was.
So you didn't win the race.
Actually, Actually, I won the first race.
Oh.
The second race, it had a bad day, but it was a good time. It was super, super fun. But again, so like having always kind of been connected in some way, shape, or form. So like when I emailed you, my mother and father split up when I was pretty young. They got back together at one point. They split back up again. But they were both always very much involved in my life, right? And my father lived not 35, 40 minutes away. So on weekends when we'd go visit him, we visited him. I would go to his race shop. That's where he was on his weekends off. And on Saturdays we were at the racetrack, and you really learn how small of a community it is. So he raced I went with him to a place called Old Dominion Speedway in Manassas, Virginia. It was owned by the Gore family. The Gore family now lives down Brawley School Road.
Okay. Not the Al Gore.
No.
Small world, though. They live on Brawley School Road in Mooresville. Well,
so I put it like, so one of my father's kind of mentors, like my first racing idol, right, wasn't Richard Petty. It wasn't Kelly. It was a guy named Dickie Boswell. He was the other side of the pillow as far as being able to sling a late model. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what you do? But it's not. He actually worked a job and did all these other things, but he was phenomenal. His son is now the crew chief on the 98 car in Xfinity, his youngest boy. He had another son who was a friend of mine who passed away years ago. But anyway, Dickie he was really, really good. I mean, and he knew everything. And this is long before you hook computers to him. This is long before, you would smell a spark plug to see if it was rich or you need to lean a carburetor, things like that, right? So 7, 8 years old, I'm looking at this guy, and he's larger in life, but he didn't, but this big, and he and my father got racing. Well, some other folks that were involved around that time, like Joey Jive used to help Dickie out quite a bit. Joey's 4 or 5 years older than I am. Another guy named Donnie Eplin. Donnie Eplin used to be, now I'm remiss on his name. He drive the beard oil car all the time. His family owns a casino out in Vegas.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
There you go. I'm going to sound...
Is it Travis Quabble?
No, it's not him. If I just shout a name out in a couple minutes, that's who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There you go. So Eplin, Donnie Eplin, who everybody calls him Fat Boy, used to work with Boswell and all that stuff. Well, the last time I saw Eplin, I was like 12. We're in Darlington, and this guy's bus is right behind my bus. My father comes down, and he's like, "Oh, is that Eplin?" And goes over this. They hadn't seen each other in 35 years. Like, you don't know how small the world is until you learn how small it is, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, anyway, Dad raced for a few years. Had pretty good success. He was good, right?
Joey Jive's a friend of mine, too.
Yeah, well...
Small world, too.
So I would tell you, Joey was on Hornaday's back porch one day, and there's a story that involves my father, his service pistol, because he was a cop, with blanks in it, Dickie Boswell and Donnie Eplin. And there may have been some things that were said, and it was all a prank, right? Well, Donnie Eplin to this day is still scared to death and still running because he was positive my father shot the guy. Well, Joey had heard all about this, and again, I hadn't seen any of these folks since I'm 11, 12 years old. Well, Joey Jive is sitting on Hornaday's back porch one day.
Brendan Gaughan.
There you go. That's him. Exactly. Brendan Gaughan. Yep.
It came to.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you. Sorry.
So he's sitting there telling Hornaday about this story. So Ron calls me up and he's like, "There's no way." So I show up over there, and Joey has no idea who I am. I'm in uniform. I walk on the back porch. We're talking. And he's like, "There's no way about it." So I FaceTime my father and just handed him the phone.
Yeah.
He's like, "Man, I thought you were dead." He's like, "Well, no, I'm not." So get that connection going back and forth. But,
Well, there's always great funny stories in racing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And when you're 10 and you see him firsthand, those are things that just live in lore.
Oh, yeah.
You're just like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So Dad got out of racing and all that. From then on, I was hooked. Like I knew that's at one point in time that's what I was going to do. So when I was very, very young in the Marine Corps, actually back up further, when I was in high school, there was a girl whose father was building a car for Budds Creek. And she had come to me, "Hey, Dad said he wants you to drive it." That never materialized, but I was hanging on to this. So I get in the military and I start going to different tracks around on different weekends, and I ended up helping this one guy who really didn't have anybody. He showed up by himself, open trailer, but he was pretty competitive. He was up front. And I'm helping him. And we formed a pretty decent relationship. And he's running a little dirt track in Savannah. And we go to a couple other places. We go to Brunswick, and I'm helping him. They have an enduro race at this track, and it's 250 laps. There's 0 cautions unless the cockpit's on fire. If a car stopped dead on the track, they send the tow truck out. If you hit the tow truck, you're out. You're black flag, right? So I mean, it's like you need to man up to get in this, right?
Sure.
So he builds his car, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're going to run it. You've been helping me, not a problem." So we got, and it's 250 of the most fun laps you ever had in your life. You're doing maybe 30 miles an hour because you're in mud, but by the end of the race, you're moving, right? And it's a moving demolition derby. So the next year, I'm helping him out some more, and he says, "Hey, I have another car. If you can get it running, you can get it qualified. You can run it." So I ran that car 2 or 3 times, and then had the brilliant idea of buying my own car. Dumbest thing you could ever do in your life. So I went and bought my own car, and I said, "Man, I got my own car. I got to have uniforms." So I went and had a bunch of shirts made up. I actually still have some of them. So my father's race team, their mantra was PTE, right? PTE racing team. So PT engineering. He's going to yell at me when he says this, but it's pure trash engineering, because you just go to the junkyard, get whatever you need, and you make it work, right?
Right.
So I had PTE racing team on the front, and the back of it said Visa owned, MasterCard operated, because I bought the car on a Visa card, and the first time I went to the track, I used my MasterCard to get it, because I was a Lance Corporal in the military. I made like $300, every 2 weeks. I have no business having a race car, but I'm going racing, right? So the first 4 or 5 weeks, it's a dirt car, first 4 or 5 weeks, rain, whatever happened. So I called the owner of Somerville Speedway. I said, "Look, I got this dirt car. I don't have a windshield in it. I got a pretty good screen in the front. Got a full face. I don't care. If you're going to sign a waiver, you can come run it." Waxed them. Show up off the trailer, waxed them. And I was like, "Well, this is it. I'm going to buy, some Lexan, and we're just going to run here." Wednesday night, the dirt track calls and says, "Hey, we're going to have some makeup race." Get down there, do phenomenal in that car. First time on the track, I'm like, "Oh, I'm the next thing coming," right?
Yeah.
The next 5 weeks, something that cost maybe $1.25 broke and caused everything else to blow up in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the matriculation of it.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So every week, going through something. But I had that car for quite a while. Anybody ever talks bad about a Pinto, me and you're going to have words, because that was a lot of fun.
Just don't run in the back of them.
No, they do ignite. Right?
Yes, they do. That's right.
But so I had a lot of fun with that, and kind of bounce it around. 97 time frame, I got stationed in Japan. I was in Japan for 3 years, and that is in the height of when all the drifting, like in Japan, in Okinawa, like here in the States, they have circuits over there that's where they're driving up and down the road. So it's just some wild stuff. I didn't care. It was a car. Let's go watch it, right? So I get back from the States. This is we're going to do something. So I buy a hauler, and when I say hauler, it's a '78 Ford cab that's got a flatbed on the back, dovetailed. Guy put some quasi homemade in his shed box on it with a winch. "Hey, I'll sell you my limited late model for dirt, and we're good." I says, "Okay, no problem." So I buy it. I can't make this up. I'm driving from where I bought it, going home. It's about 90 miles. It's a dually. The inner tire blows on it. When it blows, it takes a brake line out. The brake line sprays all over the rear end. The rear end catches on fire. The car melts to the flatbed, and the fire department shows up. And I just filled up the fuel tanks in it. It had an auxiliary tank and all this stuff. And the fire department shows up, and there's a volunteer crew and a full-time crew. I'm on the side of 295 going around Richmond, Virginia. And they're arguing over which truck's going to spray water on it. I'm like, "Guys, I don't care if you all line up and start peeing on it. Just put the fire out. I don't care, right?" So go through all that. I'm like, okay, maybe that's an omen. That's a sign.
A sign, yes.
Right? Something. Well, this is 2001 time frame, so now we understand where we are geopolitically, right? So a lot of things happen. We got some things going on. So at the time, I was stationed in Quantico, Virginia. Then I moved back down to North Carolina. And when I got back to North Carolina, I got back into where all the tracks that I had been running previously. Well, the dirt track's now an asphalt track. Sign me up. Here we go. So go back and forth, back and forth. Ironically, I'm building a car. I'm just going to admit how stupid I am. I'm building a car. A buddy of mine comes over. We might have had a few adult beverages throughout the course of the evening.
Was
right?
it beer? You like beer, right?
And I'm a pretty big fan of bourbon, and we did pretty good with it that evening. Yeah. He starts hollering my name, and I go back into nobody had laptops then, like this is 01, right? 2000. No, let me back up. 2003. So I had, computer, whatever. And so I go into a room where I have the computer. He's like, man, check this out. He goes, we can be in New Jersey like before 9 o'clock in the morning. So I bought a modified on eBay. Never seen one, never sat in a modified, never nothing. But I'm going to go to New Jersey to pick it up. Let's go. I'm positive that I bought it from the Mafia. I'm positive. They were all made guys that I picked it up from. So I load this thing up into this trailer. Now, mind you, I have a car that's under construction. I just go and buy this car. I'm driving back home. I'm like, hey, my mom's living in Maryland. I call my mom. I was like, hey, we're stopping. Make room. They're like, if we're all getting sleep in the same bed, just I don't care. But we're going to come in, go to sleep, take a shower, and leave. So we show up, go to bed, leave the next day. I go to the track that day. That's like a Wednesday. Saturday, we go to test because I was going to enter the car. And at the time, it was called the Rolling Thunder Modified Series. And it was a traveling series, but it's not like the Smart Car Series. It's picture like a Florida Modified, right? So I'm going to run it around. I'm like, okay, no problem. Well, this is the biggest waste of money I've ever had in my life. And it's the biggest turd ever put on a racetrack. But never driven a Modified before. It's going to be fun. Let's go. So I go out there and run around. And I'm starting to calculate all the things that I'm going to need to get this thing not competitive, but respectful, right? At this point, I'm just worried about respectful with it. And so, we'll put this one on blocks for a little bit. So I get a line on this other car, and it's actually the white Camaro that I sent you. Yeah. I get a line on that one, and the guy wants really nothing for it. So I call him up, and we're talking back and forth, and he's building a limited car, and I have a limited car. He needs a motor. I have an extra motor. Say, where you at? Well, I'm in Conover. I am on the way. So drop a motor off, load a car up, go home, take the transmission out of the Modified, throw it in that car. Now we're racing. First time that car's on the track, it's almost 2 seconds faster than the Modified. Shouldn't be that way, but it was, right? We campaign that car and just have a blast, have a great time. And I raced that one. It's now Goodyear All-American, but it was Coastal Plains at the time. Ran Coastal Plains, ran Eastern Carolina, ran Southern National and Kinley, ran Old Dominion in Virginia with it, and then year was over. Come back, build another car for the following year, kind of rock and roll and having a good time. Yeah, and that's just been how we are. Yeah, that's just kind of what we do.
That's exactly right. I mean, racing. What is it they say? If you want to get into racing to be a millionaire, you got to start with like 10 million.
Yeah, if you want to make a small fortune, start with a large fortune. There was, when I was a young kid, there was a guy on the back of his hauler, and it's the truest statement I ever said. It was a sticker on the back of his hauler. It says, contained inside this box is the disease twice as addictive as heroin. And I firmly believe it. Like once you do it one time, it's just cool.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to Racing Roots with Hamm, and we got Travis Hanson in with us, so y'all stay tuned.
You know, we talk a lot about buying local and doing business with local folks. And what better place than doing your banking than with a local bank? Doug Hendricks from Blue Harbor Bank, what's the story?
Billy, we have a great story. The bank has just done so well. What most of our stockholders, board members, customers, employees, everybody is right from Iredell County. The bank is very committed to Statesville and to Iredell County. We have a ton of customers all over the county. We just feel really good about being the type of bank that a community needs. When you come in the bank, hopefully you have an experience. People know your name when you come in, which is wonderful. So I would say that the thing that differentiates us is the fact that we have everything that those other banks have, but we just deliver it in a more personal manner. From a products and services perspective, I can't think of anything that folks need in Statesville that we can't deliver.
Thanks so much, Doug Hendricks. Blue Harbor Bank, your local community bank with offices in Statesville, Mooresville, and Huntersville. Member FDIC.
Voted the #1 furniture store in Statesville year after year, White Sales prides itself on amazing customer service, a huge selection of home furnishings, and flooring at affordable.
Highest level of care and service, so you'll always feel at ease. Statesville Collision Center, 114 Victory Lane, or call 704-881-0410.
With Hamm. And thank y'all so much for tuning in on our YouTube and on the radio. If you're listening on the radio at 92.9 WAME radio, you can go over to DHammiam on YouTube and see us there. You can also go to Racing Roots with Hamm on our Facebook page and my personal page and other Twitter and those areas. But just the best place to watch the show is on YouTube, because I got the different camera angles. You get to see Travis Hanson up close and personal. Really close. I showed you some.
Sorry in advance.
And all his muscularness.
Yeah.
No.
He's kind of a big guy.
He is
kind of
kind
a big deal.
guy.
But he's a 22-year Marine, retired, and now you work for the Iredell County Sheriff's Office.
Correct.
And under Sheriff Darren Campbell.
Correct.
Who's texted me a couple times during the show. So, but yeah.
So
Sheriff
22
Campbell's the man.
years. 22 years. That's isn't normally 4 years, and then
So,
up it.
a normal enlistment's 4. And like I was telling him before we started, but there was a time when, very early in my career, where I was pretty adamant I was going to get out of the military, and I had desires. I was like, I'm going to come down here and get a job at a race shop, and I'll just push a broom and work my way up. I also had a child and was looking at my daughter one night when I was contemplating getting out. And I was like, man, you probably want to eat next week too. I should
She
probably,
needs to eat too.
yeah, that whole paycheck thing is kind of nice. You
Yeah.
know, we should figure that out. And you know, hindsight with total clarity, I was just scared to death to do it. You know, didn't want to shun a responsibility as a dad.
Right.
So I did. So yeah, you know, I re-enlisted a few times and went up and down the promotion ladder a couple times. The goal was to only go up, but I went down it a couple times and then back up it. So I mean, these things happen.
Yeah.
You know, but it's kind of is what it is.
Yeah, just 22 years kind of threw me off, because I was like, that's not a normal number of years that you're in.
Honestly, in full disclosure, the difference in retirement pay between 20 years and 22 years is noticeable in a retirement check.
Yeah.
The difference between 22 years and 24 years is not as much.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
Yeah. So at 22, I said, "See you guys, I'm out."
There you go.
know? Yep. I'm
Work
going
for
to
the
start
government,
growing
and
up
then
here.
you'll be able to get double retirement pretty soon.
Yeah. You know, that's kind of an option.
Yeah, so what I wanted to mention, though, about we were talking about Sheriff Campbell, is that my dad has Alzheimer's, so he was the first recipient of the Lifesaver bracelet, which is basically what Iredell County Sheriff's Office has now. Is something
I'm just thinking of what he says about it. It's so cute.
Oh, yeah, to try to
to find people if they get lost.
Correct.
You know, it's a tool they can use.
And that your father's actually on the sheriff's office Facebook page today.
Good point,
The
yes.
presentation from it, and having had to go locate some folks, some citizens here in the county that do have mental impairments, dementia or Alzheimer's. There's one gentleman who lived off of Perth Road. He was probably 7 houses from his own house, and he was kind of advanced.
Real cunt.
Sorry about that.
I didn't know if you were getting electrocuted or not.
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
I mean, you got some moves on you.
I usually have I have it right away. The station ID plays every hour. So, we'll take a quick break here. Not right now, but here in a little bit. And then we'll get to that. You'll get to hear that again.
There you go. So this gentleman is kind of far along in ailment and was no longer verbal. So even trying to call his name or him having a phone. So those type of bracelets, one, not only for yourself as his son, it's peace of mind, because it was just it's such a force multiplier for us to help us in those adventures. So
sure. And before that, you really have your blood hand. Well, you have ISAR, and then you have the which Iredell Search and Rescue, and then you have a drone. But this could help eliminate, because you cut as much time as you possibly can.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's right there on your phone. It's almost pinpoint to where you are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's so cute. He was like, he had on his bracelet, and I said, "Poppy, what you wearing?" He says, "It's my bracelet." He says, The police know me."
That's right.
He thinks it's like an ankle bracelet or something.
It's for parolees.
It is really cute. He's like, "See what I got today?" He'll show it. He'll show it.
Yeah.
But he remembers that, so that's really cool.
It's
that
good that he knows it's the police. I said, "What do you do with it, Pop?" He's like, "I don't know."
Well,
talk to the space station.
I said, "Do you call it for help or what?"
Yeah, but I would definitely. I'm going to repost that too. But you go on and check out their Facebook. They got a Facebook and they got an Instagram too. I believe Burleson takes care of the Instagram for one of them.
We have an Instagram?
Yes, you do.
You do.
Iredell Sheriff. Yep.
Imagine that. Yeah. Like I said, I don't talk or face chat and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
But
Captain Burleson does that, and then Major Hamby. I think he mostly does Twitter most of the time for his stuff. But anyway.
There you go.
Yeah, good guys. They do a great job. Also, I texted one of my friends is tuned in. His name's Scott Burns, and he does 7 days for the troops, and he's a former Marine. I got to meet a couple of guys that had the Medal of Honor recently over at my friend Bill Ryan, his shop. I don't know if you know Bill Ryan. He'd be a good one to get to know.
I don't think I do.
But Scott does 7 days for the troops. We actually broadcasted live last year from a scaffolding. It was right down the street here, 15 foot in air, and raised money for 7 days for the troops, which also kind of goes hand in hand with the Purple Heart Homes and Brad Borders.
I know him.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and their stuff. Do you know Rocky Lynn?
I do.
A tribute to the troops.
Yep.
And
so
Rolling Thunder.
Tons of organizations that do amazing things. There are also tons and tons, and unfortunately there was one that was very embedded within NASCAR that are kind of a farce, right? Again, I'm not throwing anyone on the bus. I'm not saying anything that's not public record. So what I have found are the smaller the organization, the more goes to the individual, right? And the ones that are doing things for the right reasons, I'll bend over backwards to help them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you can pretty much see those that are doing it for the right reasons and for the good and stuff, for sure. We also want to thank our swimming pool and spa here locally. Neil Johnson has his company, and he'll do pretty much anything. Puts pool liners in. He'll come and install your pool, spas, and all that good stuff. And Bryson's looking up the number right now, but they're at 940A Davie Avenue. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook, Swimming Pool and Spa. Man stays busy, especially this time of year.
He does, yeah. And you can call him at 704-727-2488.
There you go. Very good. And we're going to go ahead and hit some of the questions, because I know we got our friends tuned in, and thank y'all for that. And we have some. Do we have any questions on YouTube, Tracy?
There are no questions.
No questions. There's a lot of comments, though.
Good. I fail tests all the time.
Well, you pretty much have answered every question without even having to read the question. But
I've just gotten great stories, things like that. You're very admirable.
Dickie Dennis is up in Richmond, Virginia.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
Devil dog is what he called you.
He says, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I meant to say that earlier. Thank you for your service.
Oh, no,
for sure.
Yeah.
But I understand.
So that's kind of hard to, like, how do you quantify that? You know what I mean? Like, people say that, and I'm like, in my head, I'm appreciative, but I'm like, when you go to Walmart, do you thank the greeter?
Yeah.
I
thank you for for telling me to have a good day.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It just sometimes a little embarrassing or whatever.
I understand. You're very modest, and here's the way I look at it. You put your life on the line. You're doing it unselfishly, like you're doing it for everybody that you're protecting. And so
people, I get asked all the time, hey, do you miss the Marine Corps? I don't miss the Marine Corps at all. Mm-hmm. Don't miss it at all. I got to a point where I was a pretty senior guy, all that stuff, but I would go back tomorrow if I could work with my Marines again. Mm-hmm. I miss them terribly.
Brotherhood.
It's a 12-year conversation. People don't understand the things that your guys will do for you and the things you will do for them. Yeah. Like I could look, there's 5 or 6 of them I can name right now and say, hey, I need you to run through that wall. And you're going to have a hole in your wall because they're going to run through it. Yeah. And that's just how they are. But they also know that I do the same thing for them. So I miss that. I miss that quite a bit.
Well, you're in with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. When you're in that, you're also doing a service to the community. It's very important.
It's the whole reason why I wanted to come here. Again, it's cliche-ish, and I'm not trying to be cliche-ish, but I've had an opportunity to serve a nation. I've never been able to serve where I lived, and it's totally different. I mean, it really is totally different. Like, when you show up someplace, and you're like, hey, I went to lunch today before I came here, and they're like, oh, you're not in uniform today. And you recognize me?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of neat. That part of it, I would say that's the reason why I'm doing it, because I enjoy that. I've never been able to serve where I live. I've never been able to have like an impact where my wife works. My wife works in Mooresville, So, and having the opportunity to kind of look over and make sure, okay, everything's going good there at the office today.
So it's the difference that when you served your country, you didn't get appreciation from the actual people that you serviced, whereas here, people know you and they actually get to physically thank you.
To an extent, right? So, to an extent. So, like every time I came home from a deployment, when we landed in the States, we landed at the same place. It's called Bangor, Maine, and the first time I came back in like '91, getting off a plane and all this stuff, like everybody it was the thing to be patriotic, right? Mm-hmm. Now you get to 03, 04, 05, 06, like this town has planes coming every day with people who are coming home from a combat deployment. Every day, that town floods that airport. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like you can talk apple pie, you can talk all those things and all that. They actually have to get up and do it. Like I can't quantify how appreciative of that I am.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Will Cronkright's tuned in as well, and Christian Wilson. But we did have a couple comments over on Facebook, right?
Yeah, we do. We want to say hello to Jim Dooley, who says, Travis is a real hero. Scott Burns and Dargan Watts are both tuned in, along with several other people. So everybody's just saying hey. So
well, hey.
And I did have 2 questions come in, actually, both of them. The first one is, will you be available for South Boston?
When is South Boston?
I don't know.
25th, which is next Saturday. This coming Saturday.
This coming Saturday, I'm actually off.
Are you going to be in South Boston?
No.
I guess that would be the question.
No. Oh, they're running the SRX race there.
They are, yes.
Yeah.
I know we were invited to go up there. And
I actually have 2 cats that I work with that are going. They were asking me about parking there yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So that's probably a hint towards me too. You're working, right?
Yes, I'm working this weekend.
So I'm gonna have to talk to Dickie Dennis. Is planning on going. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
So he's gonna come get you because you don't like to drive.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
there's my
nice little bologna burger, and we call it a trip.
And David likes to eat.
There you go.
That's for sure. Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so Cameron asked, he was here with us last week. He says, what's been your favorite moment in your career?
All right, so not to be a downer, but my favorite and hardest moment, I had a friend of mine who was killed in 2004. There's two brothers, Ronnie and Brian. Brian worked for me. Ronnie was in a unit adjacent to us. Ronnie was killed. We brought Ronnie's remains to Dover, and I was with Brian through that process and all that stuff. And I'll be candid. Ronnie was he was blown up, so the identification process took a long time.
Oh yeah.
So I convinced Brian to let me drive him from Dover to his hometown because he still had a wife, kids at home, his whole family. They're grieving the loss of their brother. They're panicked over him, all these things. It was Mother's Day of 2004. It was Mother's Day. And I got him to Altoona, and I get him to his house, and his wife, who I've known since I was 18. I've known his children since they were embryos, you know. They come out and they're happy to see their dad, and I can hear everybody in the backyard because it's Mother's Day, you know, Brian's coming home, this, that, or the other. And I walked around the back of the house, and now I'm the guy who brought Ronnie home, right? So there's mixed receptions to that. And from that day to this day, I'll never forget it. This little lady comes walking up to me, and you know, she could have been the Don or Scarface or whoever, because like people want to kiss her rings, and I didn't know whether genuflect or what in front of her. But she walked up to me and she looks me dead in the face. She said, "Are you the boy? Are you the man who brought my boy home?" And again, it's Mother's Day, so I kind of brace myself. I'm like, whatever she does is acceptable. I says, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She reached up, kissed me on the cheek, says, "I love you and thank you very much." From that day to this day, Connie's Ronnie and Brian's mother. Connie and I talk all the time. She's a phenomenal woman. Like I don't know how she has that strength. I say that's my proudest moment because in the darkest moment of that person's life, I saw how you can act, and that's what I've tried to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, North Wilkesboro.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Aaron just sent me a text, said talk about the car and how it came about in Wilkesboro. Yes, North Wilkesboro.
Okay, so Ron Hornaday and I have become very, very good friends, right? And I talk with Ron fairly regular. We go to lunch pretty much each day I'm working. And if you know Ron or know anything about him, he is the most genuine person you'll ever meet. Like the most genuine person ever. So we were talking back and forth, and he works on different things, and I'll stop in and try to help him. And it's kind of like, you know, when you hold a flashlight for your father when you're 8, you know, getting yelled at all over again, but you're learning something while you're doing it. Like the guy has forgotten more than I'm ever going to know. And he has a real humble shop, and we go and do all these things. So anyway, I was following everything that was going on with SMI and Wilkesboro, and I have some property up in Boone, and so I drive by it all the time. Never stepped foot on the property, but the lore of Wilkesboro and the history to the sport means a lot, right? The fact it hadn't been torn down since it hadn't been run on in 25 years, and they didn't tear it down. Like that means something, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they're going through all this process of, hey, we're going to start these things. And I just asked Ron one night, I says, hey man, what all are you going to need from me to build a car? I want to go run Wilkesboro. And he goes, well, we can do this. And he's got 2 or 3 dirt modifieds in his garage, and you know, he's got connections to go do whatever. I said, Ron, if I'm going to run a car again, I want to get back into racing and have fun. I said, I'm going to build a street stock. I'm just going to go have fun. If I wad it up and we send it to the recycle yard, and that's what we do, but we're going to go have fun. I said, you just let me know what all we need. He says, okay, I'll get a hold of you tomorrow. So he calls me the next day. He says, we need A, B, C, D, E, F. I says, okay. So I call Rick Ware from Rick Ware Racing, and Rick and Lisa and I are pretty good friends, and Rick and Lisa are great people. And their PR person, Kate Loomis, I've known Kate. Kate worked with me a bunch when I would bring service members to the track. So I called Rick and I said, hey, look, you guys aren't building cars anymore. Everything's, you know, comes from manufacturers now for the current car. I said, your roll bar tubing that you have at the shop, like, can I come take some measurements of it and buy some from you? Because this is what I'm doing. He goes, there's no way you'd be able to build a car in that time. This is 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. He said, there's no way. For August? I said, yeah, we kind of know what we're doing. We'll be able to do it. He said, just go to Stock Car Steel and send me an invoice. I said, really?
Nice.
He said, yeah, just go over there and get me an invoice. I said, I'm on the way. So I jumped my truck and went over to Stock Car Steel. Hey, I need A, B, C, D, E. Brought the invoice over to Rick. We talked for 15 minutes. He cut me a check. Easiest sponsorship transaction I've ever in my life heard of.
That's
right?
awesome, yeah.
Here you go. And I was like, this is amazing. So I went and got all the stuff and bring it over to Ron's. And he goes, well, now we need a car. And there's a couple cars that I looked at. And I says, okay, well, I'm going to get this Camaro up here. If that doesn't work, my father has a line on a Camaro. He's going to tow it down here. And he says, stop. You want to build a Camaro? I said, yeah. He says, grab that chain. So we grab his chain. He gets in his front end loader, goes in the woods, pulls out a car that's been in the wood for 18 years, legitimately sitting for 18 years.
Yeah.
And he goes, we already got a car. And I'm going, all right.
Was it rusted a little bit? Not too bad.
It's seen better days. So it's
sure.
nothing a plasma torch and a cutting torch and a hot saw can't take care of. So we blew it completely apart that day. Sent it to get sandblasted. Honestly, the center section of the cage is still relatively decent. That's the only thing we need. Get it back from the sandblaster a couple days later and have been nonstop at it. So one, he's a genius. Two, the only thing so far that I think are told, or like, hey, we got to go get this, is a fuel cell liner. Everything else we've completely made. So if people say, hey, you got this guy, he's in the Hall of Fame, he's out money in it, this, that, or the other. I told you, right now we're at like $1,100. Right,
yeah.
In the car.
Yeah.
Everything else is stuff that like we clean off the dust has been sitting here, and here you go, and it's running a crate motor. Now I will say, Gordy at Gear Tech is phenomenal. Here's a transmission and here's a rear end gear. When you're done, bring it back. Perfect.
So when you say $1,100, you're also getting a lot of sponsors and donations.
Exactly.
Which is great.
So Gear Tech's helped me out a ton.
Yeah.
I know Greg from Off Access Paint. He's helped me out a great deal. I saw Rick Ware yesterday when I was at work. He was walking down the road and I stopped and we were just chatting. And I can't make this up. He looks at me and he goes, hey, send me your tire bill.
Wow.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
He says, hey, I'm serious. Send me your tire bill. Okay.
Yes.
The guys at the Nine Line Foundation. So through Kate, their PR person there, and I have to say this, and I'm not trying to put in arbitrary plugs, but I have to because it really ties into everything else we talked about. So the folks at Nine Line, any shirt that you buy on their website between now and the 4th of July, the people that buy that shirt can also register a name that will be run on the 51 car for the 4th of July race.
Okay.
And then all of the proceeds from those shirts go to the Nine Line Foundation. The Nine Line Foundation is really the only organization, veteran service organization, that I'll actually work with because of who they are and how they're structured and what they do. So I had to say that because it's going to the right place. It's going to the right people.
Can you spell that? Do you know what it?
There's no
Nine Line, N-I-N-E, line.
Okay.
Yep. So, and they're great people, and Kate, who again does that team's PR, is heavily immersed in them. That's one of the reasons why they have one of their primary sponsors, because of the work they do with the military and those things. So, but again, back to the car, we're just kind of going here and going here and going here. And I thought I knew some people in the sport. I have to tell you, and only Ron Hornaday is the only person I've ever seen do this. We walked in and we're going to have some work done, and bring a carburetor in. Hey, we need to get this, and this, and this. And he says, okay, here's the bill. And he says, I'm not paying that. And I'm like, huh? He goes, I'm not paying that. And the guy's, come on, man. And he goes, I'm not paying it. I'll put a sticker on your car, but I'm not paying it. He goes, well, okay, hand him an invoice. I hand him an invoice, and the invoice, let's just say the invoice is $200. Ron's like, I brought $100 with me. That's all we're doing. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I'm thinking I'm in the middle of like World War III. I don't realize that this is a 35, 40-year relationship. This is their communication. So we get in the truck, and he says, okay, go over to Park's place. So we need a battery for the car.
Yeah.
So again, and it's specific dimensions for the box and all that. And I'm like,
Steve Parks.
Yep. And Steve's a great guy. Steve actually had come to a couple of events that I held from our organization before. Great guy. And I'm like, hey, I need a battery this big. Can't be any bigger than this. And he hands me a tape measure. He's like, okay, go look. Here comes Ron. hey, I need to use your bathroom, and I'm not paying for this battery. And I'm like, man, what are we doing? You know, like here's my card. Just swipe it, please. Just swipe. But I mean, that's how everybody has been when they found out, hey, okay, this is why we're doing it. We're solely going to run Wilkesboro because I'm a firm believer. And I shared this with you in an email. When they shut Rockingham down, everybody, if you listen to any MRN show, if you listen to any racing show, if you listen to anybody that watched racing once since 1970, I can't believe they shut Rockingham down. They shut Wilkesboro down, killing the sport. So then they opened Rockingham back up, and it was packed. Okay, we're coming back next year, and no one showed up. Yeah. Well, you don't get to complain to me anymore if you didn't show up.
No, that's right.
You know what I mean? So now everybody's jumping up and down. Hey, we need to have Wilkesboro. We need to have it, and that town needs to have. Like, it's big. It's a big deal for them, right? If you can go and you don't go, you don't get to complain to me anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? And for me, a dude that has no business running at a track that at one time had that history, to have the opportunity to go turn left there, sign me up all day long.
Yeah.
You know?
We're going, right, Bryson?
Absolutely. I'm going to live there for a whole 2 months pretty much. So I'm going to, as much time as I can be at the racetrack, I'm going to be there.
Well, August 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Bryson's been actually, he's been kind of behind the scenes over there with some of the stuff and the meetings and such. And he works up at Hickory on Saturday nights.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've always been fascinated by Wilkesboro, and you know, even before they you know decided to bring it back, I've always, you know, wished ever since I was a kid. So I live in Taylorsville, so we're not that far from Wilkesboro, and we would ride by the track, and you know, you walk into Wilkesboro and it's just overwhelming, the amount of history, and it's like the place. This might sound weird, but it's like the place talks to you in a way. You know, you walk in and it's so historic, and so to see that place coming back is just it means a lot. And like you said, it means a lot to the people of Wilkesboro. I mean, those people have really pushed. It's cool to see how they come together to bring it back and, you know, show what it really means to it. But I like what you said. If you know, people that are able don't support it, then you know, it won't continue. So everybody's got to go out and give it the support that it deserves.
And, you know, like my prayer is that, you know, everybody is automatically going to jump on we got to have a truck race next year. We got to have if they have weekly racing there next year. Yeah. I'll pull a car there. I mean, that'd be tremendous, you know. And Marcus Smith he's not Marcus Smith because he's not intelligent, right? Right. Yeah. You know, there is an in-state game. There's an in-state goal that is there. But if you don't go up front, then you don't. In my opinion, you don't get to complain. If Hickory shut down, right? And as much history as Hickory has, like if I get an opportunity to run Hickory and win a race at Hickory forever, I'm a winner at Hickory, right? I show up at Wilkesboro and run 40th out of 40 cars. I ran Wilkesboro. I'm not going there to make friends. I'm going there to race.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. So our good friend Bill Blair, Jr., he was there 75 years ago. He was there for the first race at North Wilkesboro. Oh. And so he's been involved with going back, and I'm pretty sure he's going to go back when they start racing there again. So anyway. Oh yeah, he has a ton of information. I'm sure he's listening, and if he's probably listening right now. Is it Tracy?
He's not online.
Not right now, but yeah, he always listens.
He might be listening through Facebook.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, great historian. His dad won in Daytona in 1953. Whoa, the beach road course down there. Yeah, so his first race was in 1941 when he was just a few years old. High Point. So
then you go, like if you go to Daytona now and you sit at the north turn and you look out onto the water and you're like, this was a racetrack, you know, stop talking. Yeah. You know, it's crazy, you know.
Yeah, I get goosebumps when I'm walking around down there. We got to go down there and be involved in the parade and drove around in was that a 41 Ford, I think it was. We were riding around and it belonged to Steve Levitt. It was his dad, Gardner Levitt, who raced up north. But we got to ride around in that car. That was cool.
That'd be amazing.
Yep. Tracy, do you have any questions on the YouTube?
Nope, that was the only two.
Okay. So then let's see. Did you see Christian's?
Yes.
Dickie Dennis was saying, he sent me a message on Messenger that he really wanted to meet you. So we'll see. We'll talk about that after the show. Might have to do. But let's take a quick break. I know we're getting toward the end of the show, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and do the station ID and all that stuff. It's kind of important. And we'll be right back to Racing Roots with Hamm.
Country 550 and 92.9 WAME and W225BD Statesville.
Remodeling, cleaning, downsizing, or just getting organized? Whatever your project, don't let the items you no longer need end up in your local landfill. The Habitat for Humanity
.550 and 92.9 WAME.
All right, we're back to Racing Roots with Hamm. We got Travis Hanson in with us, and Travis Hanson is on a mission. He's going to go run North Wilkesboro, the legendary track that's coming back.
I can't wait.
Hey, that's what it should be, their tagline.
Yeah.
The legendary track that's coming back. All right, we're going to start saying that, Bryson.
The legendary track that's coming
There's
back.
your T-shirt idea.
Oh, shh. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to write that down. No, I got it recorded right here. Yes. All right, and we're gonna mention a few other things here. So what else we got to?
So you alluded to it. There's been, again, through Ron and just because of how genuine he is, other people appreciate that, and they've been over backwards to help. So Bill Steen and all the folks at Bill Steen Shocks, they've come over. Hey, whatever you need, here you go. And I'm not even second guessing. I'm like, go nuts. You can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Gordy at CureTech, again, on a phone call and a handshake, here's all your stuff. And he actually had to go out and buy materials to build the gears and the transmissions so that it would meet the rules there, because all of his stuff is Xfinity stuff, truck stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but he wanted to be a part of it as well. Greg over at Off Access, he has been a phenomenal supporter of me and the organization, and he's going to come spot for me at Wilkesboro.
Okay.
So he does a lot of truck spotting, Xfinity spotting, and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So just everybody in the brother who's been over backwards. One, I can't thank him enough, but I just also can't wait to get it on the track and just actually be there at that venue. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it is, and we're going to come out there and support you.
Right on.
So yeah, you probably picked up so many more fans here watching our show. And if you are watching this on a replay tomorrow or the next day, remember that. So how can people get a hold of you?
So as much as I say I don't talk book or face chat and all that, I actually do have a Twitter, and I do have an Instagram. They're both the same. It's Vets Racing.
Okay.
And VETS Racing. And I'm the only one who looks at them and goes at them. You'll see a lot of pictures of my dog because he's cool. Yeah. And things like that, but that's what we do.
All right. Well, I'll make sure to tag you in the stuff on the Instagram and Twitter.
Perfect.
From now on, because we do have people that come back and watch our show the following day, and I'll start doing some more, putting it out to more of our friends tomorrow.
Perfect.
As well. Is there any comments over on the Facebooks?
Yes, I had one question from Scott Burns. He was wanting to meet you as well, and he was asking if you would be at Talladega. I'm assuming the fall race.
I will not be at Talladega. We will be at Darlington, but we're not planning on going to Talladega.
All right.
Yeah. Scott Burns is the one with the 7 days for the troops. We were talking about earlier, former Marine. But once a Marine, always a Marine.
There you go.
So, yeah. Very good. Well, is there anything you want to say to Ron Hornaday?
I'll share a conversation that we had just so you understand what type of friend he is with me. Yeah. We were having lunch one day. We were working shop a few hours, go to lunch, go back to the shop. And he looks at me and he says, look, I've been burned on a lot of race cars. He said, so whatever happens, this race car cannot affect our friendship. I said, Ron, I need you to understand, I'll burn the car to the ground before I would allow that to happen. He's such a genuine person that, again, I make references, well, when you don't know things, I'm at a point in my life where I thought I had things figured out, and then I met somebody who actually taught me how to be more genuine, and that friendship is immeasurable to me, and it's invaluable to me.
Yeah.
So I just can't thank him enough.
Yeah, that's great. I was, we were there whenever he was nominated into the Hall of Fame, because that was the same time that Robert Yates was the same night.
And my wife and I went to that induction that year. My son and I started when he was younger. We went pretty much every year except the first year. The first year, I guess there wasn't a hall that year. But then the first year they had the induction ceremony. We've been quite a few times. Last year was the first year that I think I missed.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from the year that it snowed and Charlotte shut down because 3 snowflakes fell. So
that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we also, I was his, so he filled in 2001 in that Channel Lock 11 car. So I ended up being his jackman for several races, but he pretty much was the one that jumped in that car and did the best that season. Mm-hmm. He's a driver. He's a wheelman. No doubt about it.
He is.
Yep, for sure. Scott Trevison just tuned in all the way from down in Florida. Daytona.
The World Center of Racing is what he likes to say.
That's right. And Rod Farm says, well, new fan. So you got you a new fan there.
Awesome.
Yep. And let's see, Paul and Kit Rodriguez were tuned in down to Port St. Lucie, Florida. Didn't want to miss them.
Dargan Watts was tuned in.
Yep, he's down around the Orlando, Daytona area.
The infamous Dickie Dennis.
And speaking of the Northern Racing's Northern Restaurant there, Dargan Watts, he heads up the parade that they have every year down there. Yep. Will Cronkite was tuned in as well. Do you know Will Cronkite?
I don't believe so, no.
He's the one that provided the first competitive race car for Dale Earnhardt Sr. in 1978.
Oh, the white 96 Torino, I believe it was. Yeah.
That's it. He's the one that always has the Goodyear hat.
There you go.
And the suspenders.
Yes.
Okay.
He's been on the show several times.
Yes, he has.
And then the week after he was on this show, he got a call from Junior. Said, hey, do you want to come over on my show? And he said, no, I don't really have time for you, Dale Jr.
Did not.
I'm just kidding.
He showed up.
Yeah, he showed up, and it worked out pretty good. Yeah. And our friend Dickie Dennis, he's the one that shut down the race at Richmond 2014 by climbing up on the fence. He just wanted a selfie.
I remember. I think he was a little overserved.
Well, he's Army, and you know how them Army guys are.
You know what Army, ARMY.
I forgot.
Ain't ready for the Marines yet.
Oh, Lord.
Hey, at least I didn't say it.
I did. I mean, I'll do it again. I mean,
Yep, so pretty much that's it. He climbed up there. He wanted his picture with the 4 car, and he realized he left his cell phone sitting on his seat.
Huh.
So,
yeah.
So he threw his arms up. Like,
there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fence climber.
Here I am. Come and get me.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's his story.
He was gotten all right.
Mm-hmm. And Scott Harrison, dude, you're famous. He says that's the fence climber rules. Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming up.
Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I appreciate it a great deal. It's been a pleasure meeting you and Tracy. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Aaron sent me a message, said, hey, I got somebody that you need to get on your show because it would be great.
And Aaron's been blowing my phone up.
Oh, yeah.
Entire, you're not even talking about the race. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
So
it's
we'll
all
get
good.
there.
Yeah.
Well, he's always welcome to come back. You know, maybe we'll come back closer to the race time. When is the dates for the race again?
So I'll be there the 15th, 16th, and 17th of August. The race itself is the 17th. Mm-hmm. So how they have it structured is they're running 2 classes per day, every day of the month minus Sundays. September, they'll tear the track up, and the same thing will repeat through October.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
So is the street stock race, is that a Wednesday feature?
Correct.
So I'm excited about that. That'll be fun too. The Wednesday feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think my nephew's going to come up and race too. He races in the he races in the late model crates, 602s or something. Yeah.
Yep.
So that'd be a lot of fun.
I did just want to say that, you know, speaking of the military and racing and stuff, they kind of go hand in hand. The NASCAR and all those really support the military.
There is not another sport that is more ingratiating to the military than not only NASCAR, all motorsports. Mm-hmm. I have yet to have a negative experience.
Exactly.
Really have yet to have a negative experience.
Yeah, that is very good. Very true. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you had Humpy Wheeler and the way they used to set up. When Charlotte still does it around them.
I've invaded Charlotte Motor Speedway like 5 times.
Yeah.
I've died in Charlotte twice. I've invaded it a total of 5 times.
That's awesome, man. You might have been there when I was a jack man back in the day.
Yeah. I was a lot skinnier at that time. You might have seen me. I had camis on, face paint.
Oh, yeah,
black boots.
That was that guy. I thought I recognized.
Yeah, that was that guy.
The G.I. Joe looking guy.
Yeah, that was him. Yeah, that was me. Yeah,
but that's great.
Really hot, smelled. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, but if you paint an avatar of a racing fan, though, they usually are patriotic for sure, and they support our police force as well, military.
What I think is different between automotive fans and stick and ball fans is there is diehard loyalty. Like they're dead steadfastly loyal to their guy. And then when their guy goes away, they find another guy and they're steadfastly loyal. Whereas it's an individual, where a stick and ball guy is like, okay, hey, I like this whole team. Well, there could be some folks on that team that aren't good people, you know?
Yeah.
So you're teaching values right there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And Janet Trevison says, hello from De Leon Springs. And speaking of wives, that's Spearman's wife, Scott Trevison. But speaking of wives, is there one person that you go home to in the evening that you're really thankful for?
So
I was asked to say that.
It was that Aaron?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So Aaron knows how I met my wife. Yeah. My wife's a chiropractor. My wife is heavily involved in the sport of NASCAR. She takes care of a lot of the drivers. We met through some friends, and I will tell you my wife and I's actual first conversation, but I will not say it while you're streaming, because we're on celestial radio and it will be frowned upon.
I got you.
But she's the first person that, and I said it earlier, like she's the reason that I did find peace. She's the reason that I did, like I don't have a desire to go running and gunning and do all those things. I was a lot of things for a long time. A good husband was not one of them. And I'm the first person to say it. Like every person has one person that'll cause you to be that. And my wife, Lynn, is that person. And people can say, oh, you're being gushy, all that. I don't really care. Yeah. Like she's that person to me. So yeah. Thank you, Aaron. You get brownie points. I appreciate you, buddy.
There you go. That's very nice, because I'm sure everything that you've been through has been.
My wife's so excited about this race in August that she's going to Canada.
Oh, is that right?
That week, because that's where she's from. She's like, well, no, I'm going to go home that week. I was like, all right, babe.
Yes.
Watch it on this platform. Have a good time.
Yes. Does she say a lot?
No, she's gotten Americanized out of it now. When her mom comes down quite a bit. Her mother's awesome, and some of her friends come down quite a bit. When she gets immersed in it, there's a lot of yeah-yeahs and, sorry. Because Canadians they say sorry a lot. I don't know why. They just, sorry. I was like, I heard you the first time.
Yeah. I don't know. You know Phil Cavalli, you remember him? No. He was a NASCAR photographer for 30-something years. He still does that, but he's from up in Canada. He's got his own island up there. But we miss him here on Racing Roots. He's helped us out a bunch. But he's been going through some health things here lately. So.
And hopefully you're on the mend, Phil.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and stay tuned next week. Actually, just keep an eye on Racing Roots with Hamm on Facebook. You know, I got a group and a page there, and that lets you know who's going to be our next guest. And I believe probably Robert Surt for next Monday. But just stay tuned. It's always a mystery. And,
there you go.
But thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Once again. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the future and seeing you racing at North Wilkesboro.
Right on. Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. All right. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
You know, most folks around here know a guy by the name of Jimbo Shaver wood products. A few years back, he decided he wanted to start a little